Rosie the Riveter, iconic American masculine counterfeiter. What does she see? She says she does it for pride and country, to build those rolling, floating, flying death machines and obelisks to beautiful capitalist progression, installing her own glass ceiling. She is the new head of the family, the fire metal death machines to every man in her family, trapped in exploding metal coffins made by their wives. A special kind of poetic beauty, a strange, horrific adultery, their men dying in someone else's motherland. Her deep, dark, shimmering blue, glittering past the false fluorescent sun, she screams her silent rage across each face with her visceral, bloodshot whites. In a room of dark amber and brown, filled with the smoke of half-finished cigarettes, smelling of aged scotch, wrinkled leather, and greasy fake bronze, in a shady corner she sits. Filled with an ebon self-confidence and urban indifference, she stares at the sweat on the brow of the trumpet man. Ears tuned to the catatonic trombone melody, body slightly swaying to the rhythmic blues, purples, and greens of the bass keeping time, low and slow. Her hair is pulled up in tight, tiny, smooth braids, falling in 1,000 little strips past her shoulders. Her skin, smooth and dark and cool like midsummer shade, arms with the muscles of a hard day's work, rests on a tiny, circular chestnut table, holding her glass of whiskey. Nostrils filled with the perfume of vanilla, rosemary, and deep red clay, she swaggers up the stairs of the stage, caresses the tin and bronze mic with the head of her sleeping, drunken lover, feels the melancholy of the piano man's melodies and sultry harmonies, breathes deep a breath of smoke and vanilla, closes her eyes, and sings.
She sits on sunlit lawns in faded family portraits, with children on her knees silently, her husband out of frame, overseas in other water-stained photographs. Her glasses rest, like mine, unwillingly on her nose, and her smile squints into a perpetually too bright sun. She has seen too much passed around in this paper prison. We slide her between clear sheets, the cleanest, safest life she's known. The hardwood floors of her revival church swell and groan with the tears of 1,000 kitchen witches. On the dirt floors of her house, she mends with her crying, eyes wet with moonshine and the polished patent leather of children's Sunday shoes. Resting disquietly in this protective plastic, she bores into me at family reunions. But through the removals and generations which separate us, we regard each other through filthy glasses and dry eyes. Her essence is in walking long instead of walking tall. The muted, twisting tresses of righteous causes streaming from the backs of the battle chariots she keeps at the bottom of her purse. She mends the pieces of broken manifestos with far-sighted fingers and numb eyes, weaving the words with an unwilling compliance to the alliances she keeps. I find in eyes that look through mirrors flecks of sunlight, bright, unfading. A child, lady, woman sits, with headstones and old photographs. To acknowledge the beauty we find at our feet should be enough to lay down to rest, under dewy grass, and find peace.
belting out autumn reflections of her melancholy indifference. A soul, waiting in the calm, cool, collected pool of color, shaded by a quiet hazel light, reflecting on the huddled mass of shame and tears at her feet. The hardened weight of disregard scabs over the long necks and small smiles of the nothing to find and nothing to fear. She worked out her anger in the wrung necks of chickens and the copious gaps between floorboards. Yet, like lions in zoos, her back is as straight as the faith she tucks under her shirt. The eulogies turned christenings fall on blind ears and deaf eyes. She wears her scars in her hairline, welts and puckers on baby's soft skin, framed by jagged curls, put on display. She doesn't hide them, but she doesn't talk about it. The one by her eye marks 8 years. 8 years of a father who didn't love her, no matter how much she gave. A bastard on an island of Catholicism, her mother's face still soft with youth. By her mouth is Georgia, the scar that stole her island drawl and replaced it with flat American like every other cruel child you know. Her true voice taken from her, a landlocked little mermaid. Around her ears the marks of "You're not good enough, you're not good enough." They bear relation to the ones on her fingers, popping pills, perpetuating silence, because at least it's better than noise. She is my best friend. She is broken in so many ways. Pieces of her heart are scattered across the planet, messages sent out in bottles that may have never reached anyone at all. She's a story of survival, a story of so much love, of a heart that is tough and sharp. But she'll give you a piece if you promise to take care of it. She gave a piece to me. I was 14 and finally, growing out of my awkward phase. And the dress, hung among a million of its longer-hemmed brethren, an illicit club on the Las Vegas Strip, nestled between nuns. Disgusting and yet. And it was not so much the cut, goatee wasn't quite there yet, but I didn't take it off, even though it was short in my 5'2" frame, cut low up top, and the straps were so thin I couldn't wear my A-cup bra with it. I spun in front of the mirror, a shower of crimson glitter sticking to my cotton socks, and I felt daring and stupid and pretty and ridiculous and caught between wanting this and being too young for so much, for so little. Red. I wonder if I went back now, and that red dress was still hanging there like a dare, and I put it on, the strap still too thin for my now C-cup bra, the skirt still just as short, because I'm still 5'2". Would I still feel beautiful and ugly and conflicted and young? Or will I finally fill it out the way I filled out my own body, and finally be red?
Her hips are wide, and she carries her girth with pride. Her chest is proportional to her waist, a slightly rounded, smooth pear shape. Because women aren't supposed to look like wasps, she said. All they do is sting, and they look so underfed.
Her hair was once long and straight and black, but time has done good to change that. The straight and narrow and tame have gained a slight sway. The glossy black is now a mane of soft speckled gray.
She says the curves make life a little more gay, a little easier to sway with the push of a warm summer wind. Her clothes are simple but comfortable, so she doesn't complain.
For her, fashion was always a fickle, two-faced little fuck, always playing games.
Her hands are strong and stable, filled with story and poetry.
Calloused from the garden and the hoe, but polished from making bread and kneading dough, nimble from knitting scarves and patching clothes, and warm like a fire under a cold winter snow.
At dusk, she dances calmly on her handmade hardwood floor. Her lover died so many years ago, so she dances alone. And even though she accepted it years ago, age and sadness cause her to dance slow. Sometimes, when the ground is covered in snow, and her bones ache and moan, she shuffles slow to her old piano and plays a song, low and soft and slow. And even as she lies there in her bed, her eyes empty like the dead, her face is filled with a grace that most will never know.
The funeral was simple and small, overcast by a quiet, soft rainfall. A simple pine casket buried in the earth under her favorite shaded tree.
Returning to her mother, the funeral ended at 3:15. And though her mind was frazzled, her bones frail, and she was old.
The life she lived was of no great length. The life she lived had incredible strength, found in her quiet